I often say that the more integrated two systems are, the better it is for the end user, because everything speaks the same language. And this is what's happening to Ariba and to S4. They have more and more standard integration, all speaking the same language. And this makes it easy to go from one system to the other. It becomes seamless between one another. But there is another very important integration. This is going to be pretty much the focus today, is reaching out to the suppliers, making sure that the suppliers are also part of that integration, that they don't go onto a fax to receive your purchase order, for example. So before I start, let's differentiate something that's quite key. Unstructured and structured procurement. Those are two different types of procurement. When I say unstructured, think of, I need a new coffee press for the coffee corner. To do this kind of procurement, I go in guided buying, I search on a catalog, maybe a spot buy, I find it, order, my boss approve, and there it goes. That's easy. And maybe next week it's going to be the paper that needs to be replenished. Maybe it's going to be some security material around for fire extinguishers, or maybe the carpet needs to be changed. Those are all unplanned, unstructured. Basically, they happen as the day go by. And this is the world of indirect procurement. And it's always different. Everything is a surprise. Every day is new. Now take that coffee press and let's look at it if you are the manufacturer of that coffee press, if you're the one making that coffee press. Now this is another story. You're going to look at it as a bill of material. Basically, you are going to do procurement around this, like a list of ingredients that you need to create that coffee press. And each one of those parts will have a specific code, information about their material, their structure, who can deliver them, their source of supplies. There is a lot of information about each one of those parts. It gets even better. If you look at this, the plunger that goes into it has actually 3 subparts. So it has its mini bill of material, a level 2. And if you look at my laptop, think of all the millions of parts that there is in this tablet. It has a bill of material. The company that manufactured this has a single bill of material for this laptop. And believe me, it has thousands, if not tens of thousands of lines and subgroups and sub-subgroups to make this all together. So when you're talking about procurement for the parts of this indirect, it's a structured procurement. And when you think about just buying a finished product or finished services, an ad hoc thing, something that is, you don't need to codify it, you need just to buy it, then you are in the world of unstructured, of typically indirect procurement. Hope that makes sense. S4 loves this part because S4 has systems outside procurement for managing the sales of this, for managing the production of this, maybe the molding, plastic molds that's going to make this. It will have inventory, it will have auto-replenishment. It has a world of industrial processes and systems to make this happen. Yes? And the structured data in the bill of material is key to make sure that this is done in high quality and exactly as the company wants it. So when it comes to procurement, think I want to negotiate the glass part of this coffee press. It's not done in the same way as searching in a catalog and just finding the article. You need to make sure that when you send that request, very exact specifications are sent. As they come back to you, it needs to be in the same format. It needs to be integrated. You don't want to start looking at Excel spreadsheet of all those parts. You want it to be completely in the same language. Now, this is where my demo is going to start from our innovations. I'm going to look right now at an S4 landing page, the Fiori Launchpad. Basically, that's your home page. You can do many things in procurement here, but you could even ask for a holiday to your boss if you want to. But right now, we're going to do quotes. And in here, we're going to look at RFPs inside S4. I'm going to create a new request for RFP. And here, it's a matter of filling some of the screens that are needed. When do I need it, etc. The next part is more interesting. If I look at my items, and there's the magic, I'm going to look at my material, And there we have the codification I was talking about earlier on. There we have the bill of material or the information about that specific part that comes into the system. And I just need to continue. How many do I want? When they need to be delivered? I describe the requirement for that specific part. Now there are other processes around here. We're going to skip them in sake of time, but who's going to be the suppliers and the structure around that. And then you're ready to send that quote to the supplier. You can see here the process, it's been published. Let's flip to the supplier right now. Now the supplier is on the Ariba network. That's where Ariba comes in, because the suppliers, there are millions of them, will receive this quote request and will be able to answer it in the format that is liked by S4. All the information is captured exactly in a structured way. I said structured procurement. And he can review some specification. But when the supplier is going to actually quote all the parts here, he's going to go into all the details requested by that system to be able to provide the information. And this is what is happening now. The supplier is providing all that information and submitting his quote back to the buyer. Let's go back now to S4 to review that quote. In here, we're going to now compare multiple offers. The time has passed. We've received several offers. We find back our RFQ. And here we see we have 3 offers that were done. We're going to look at this one. We see the 3 columns with the different quotes that were done. The system highlights in green on the right the cheapest offer, basically, for the 2 items. And at this point, it's just a matter of selecting the best offer, awarding, in other words, to that supplier to continue the process. Now, this is what's going to happen here. I'm going to select and award to Bright Star Inc. And the process is done. This can now turn into a purchase order, for example, or into a contract. It's ready to go. It has selected a price. That process is done. We're now back into business. Now, there is something else though. What happens when you have the bill of material or something complex like this, when you have thousands and thousands and thousands of items? Now, sometimes that becomes a little bit too challenging to just do in the previous screen we saw. And this is where Ariba Direct Materials Sourcing comes in. You're seeing Ariba right now, where we're going to import. I talked about integration, import all those glorious bill of material with all their complexity and all their details into the dashboard. And from there, I'm going to start being able to do some sourcing with them. And this is what's about to happen here. I'm going to look at my bill of material for this French press. I see all the different parts here that we were talking about. Look at the left, it's probably a little bit small, but you see 1 and then 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Those are the sub bill of material. You know, the hierarchy I was talking about. It goes even to a level 3 in here. So we have 3 level, just like my plunger was a level 2. Now I'm going to select one of those parts here that I would like to send into a sourcing event, the filter screen. I select it directly. And now it's a very similar process. I will need to provide the information that I want to receive from the supplier, prices and different things. I'm going to select suppliers, provide additional information needed, and then I'm going to be ready to publish this. The supplier sees his previous events. He can see what that is pending selection, and he has one here which is open, the filter screen. He's going to be interested in looking at that. What he's seeing now, he needs to provide the quote, is the quote for different months, for May, June, July, August, September, plus additional information. Basically, it's a scheduled agreement, for example, or it's a pricing per month. You already see that it's not just a simple price. It has more angles into this. Now he's going to provide that price and submit his response. Eventually he could add document. There is many other things he can do here, but for sake of simplicity, that's what he's going to do. And another supplier in the same time is doing it, so that when we go back as the buyer, we're the buyer now to look at the result, because that's what we're interested in too. We're going to be able to see the two offers that came in and already identify one which is the cheapest one. And at that point, we can zoom in just at the price to make it clean. And we're going to select, and it's going to be interesting, we're going to select the two suppliers. We're going to award to two, because maybe the only thing we want to do is bring that price back into our info record, into S4, as a source of supply. Or maybe we have, a balancing of sending both to both suppliers. There are many different reasons. But this is things we can do in direct material sourcing. And once again, all the bill of material is imported to do this inside the system. Supplier, new suppliers, how do you do this? Many ways to get to Rome. From guided buying, you can have a form to request a new vendor. I need this vendor. And here, just name, address, contact detail. No, not even address, just the name of the company and the contact detail, and set it out. We're going to let the supplier do the work. So we just want to capture the minimum. And maybe you need to have an approval around this to make sure, are you allowed to ask a new vendor? This is what's happening now here. Someone is approving. Yes, you can go ahead. And now the next step is when we're going to reach out to the supplier. Okay, supplier, send us all your information, your public information and the information that is relevant just to us into a questionnaire. So this questionnaire I'm selecting now, it's my own company's information and I want that, so give that to me. The supplier receives an email. From there, he can select to log in an existing account or create a new one. There are many ways. Once again, maybe it's a large company that's done this many times before. We want to avoid duplicates. In this case, it's a new one. And look, we're going to go quick here, but basically the supplier fills in his name, address, phone number, all that kind of information. He will select a username and a password. I'm sure you've all done that before, right? And accept some terms and conditions. That's the general information. And once this is done, then he accesses the second part, which is the private questionnaire of the client. And here it is. The client is asking some certifications, some capacity, some capabilities, and things like that. And the supplier will provide this. This is linked to supplier qualification, risk management, many other things. But once again, the work is done by the supplier, and this is what we want. We want to make sure, because they know the best what it is. Now, once the supplier has done all this, he's there, he's registered, and we can manage that process further. It can create literally the vendor information inside S4. It can be integrated directly down to the supplier, to the ERP. That's another point of integration. Now, the next question here is, we're just started and we have hundreds and hundreds, even sometimes thousands of suppliers. Is there a better way? Do we need to do them one by one this way, or can we just mass import all them? So let's look at that. You're still the buyer and you're going to log in onto the Ariba network. And the reason why, it's because you want to upload an Excel spreadsheet with lots of information. This is what you're going to do now. I have new suppliers, I have a list, I have information about them, I want to send this out. And please, this is what we're going to do here, verify if they already exist on the network. And the system told you, yeah, you've got 25 asked, but you have 6 new and 19 already exist on the network. So you will have a managed, so that's how quickly it can be done, right? It's very, very fast and integrated. So at this point, you need a process to validate all this just to make sure that it all makes sense, right? It remains your suppliers. Another tool that you have here in your toolbox is to ask, okay, can you just do me a little bit of a business case? Where should I start? If you provide purchase order information inside your data, the system can detect, okay, that supplier, you've only used it once 3 years ago, while this one has 500 PO this year. Maybe you should start with the recommended. They're going to get much more, you're going to get much more value of enabling them first. Because when you have 2,000 suppliers, we do all the work, but it still takes time. It's a wave plan. You have work to be done here. Now, this was a way to start focusing your effort. And once the enablement is started, well, you have different ways to continue this. In this case, we looked at one single suppliers, and we've identified 6 different locations in the US where they have registered an activity. So the supplier exists in multiple places. So you could select by hand which one you think is the best and just save this, leave it like that. Or there is an alternative, is you actually dispatch back to the supplier that work. You actually going to just approve that step quickly, but do a supplier enablement. You're going to remove all those suppliers into a wave plan. You're going to send them an invitation by email to verify. You have 4 locations, 5 locations, which one is the best? Can you provide more information and this and that? Once again, the supplier is the one that knows the best what it is. We have the example of the email here being sent to a supplier to validate what we've done with his own data. And this is how you can embark or enable a lot and a thousand of suppliers. Let's all remember that we do the work of supporting those suppliers ourselves. This is part of what we do, but this is your monitoring tool. So maybe to conclude here, if you have structured procurement and you want to do this in S4 and do that work there, or if you have more unstructured procurement and you want to do this in guided buying and deploy to all your employees for everybody to procure in one place, this is all fine and well. It's very well integrated, but the supplier needs to also be part of that story. They need to also be integrated here because they are the one ultimately that will make this a success. And this is why we've made so much effort behind the scene in growing the Ariba network that has more than 2 million suppliers right now, and to connect all those systems to the world of supplies in an electronic language.